Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, viewers, friends of Ikra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host Iqbal Bana, coming into your homes every week on a Monday, trying to bring to you issues of interest, people who have some interesting shared thoughts that they would like to share with us, bring issues that are important to our communities, and try and share their knowledge, their experience, and give us some guidance and answers to some of those challenges that we face in our day-to-day lives. Over the last 3 months or so, most of my programs have focused on what has been happening in Gaza and how we need to respond to that, but also how politics in this country has shaped dialogue and discourse over the last 3 months as well. And we've had a number of guests who come and spoken to yourselves, through me, and on this program to talk about their frustration, their anger in the way this government has been responding. Despite thousands and thousands, even 1 million people marching on the streets of London and hundreds and thousands of people marching in our towns and cities over the last 3-4 months, very little, if anything, has changed. And particularly in the heartlands of the working class communities, the Labour Party had been the party of choice for the majority of people who come from a working class background and for people who are immigrants in this country. For years and years, the Labour Party relied on the vote of people of colour who came into this country as migrants. And that tradition carried on for many, many years, up to 3-4 generations. This time we have seen that many, many young people, particularly from the Asian community, as well as some from the non-Asian community, who are now saying that the politicians have completely lost touch with those on the ground because they have not been listening to what their wars are, not just in relation to Gaza itself, but some of the other inequalities that we see in our communities. In terms of the economy, we've seen northern towns which were devastated after the miners' strike, that very little economic activity has been regenerated in those communities. Areas which had heavy textile and engineering industries have lost heavily to the south. The disparity in the manner in which the government provides funding to local authorities, particularly in the north compared to those in the south, is also something that has been of concern. And we've seen particularly now, and today, or in particular, or Thursday last week, we saw George Galloway actually showing that there is huge frustration and that people are sick and tired of the two-party system because of the fact that they're not listening to the two-party political system. The leaders are not listening. And particularly the Labour Party, which people felt some sort of affinity with, because the Labour Party was seen to be the party of the underprivileged, those who were suffering inequality, those who wanted to fight for justice and equality for everyone in our community. They felt that the new leadership under Keir Starmer has not been listening to what the people have been talking about. And George Galloway's victory is testament to that frustration. Now, of course, the extreme right and those who want to sow divisions within our community are going to use that in as much as they can to try and even further sow divisions and hatred in our communities. I was listening to a radio show this morning, and they have now started labeling George Galloway not as an MP for Rochdale, but as an MP for Gaza. And that's the type of image that they're trying to build. Now, as I say, we have also in the next month or so a local election coming up. We know there's going to be a general election very soon, but much more importantly, we've got some local elections coming up. And throughout the country, I've detected and noticed that many, many areas are now saying we are sick and tired of the two-party system, and we want to try and change that. And many people are now putting themselves forward to stand as independents. And we had a person a couple of weeks ago, Muhammad Ali Islam, he came here and he was talking about he and his colleagues wanting to make sure that the existing councillors who are not listening to people, not just on Gaza, but also some of the local issues that confront communities, that they want to stand. He stood before, he was not successful, but he and his colleagues are standing again at the May local government election as independents. So today I have two eminent people. One of them has been a member of parliament for the Liberal Democrats for Bradford, has been a councillor for over 31 years, as well as in Bradford, is David Ward. Many of the people in Bradford will know him quite well. And my other guest is Ishtiaq Ahmed, not the Ishtiaq Ahmed who usually comes on my program from the Gizmat Centre, but this is also Ishtiaq Ahmed. But he has been on my program because he works for the Sharing Voices, the mental health charity, and he's shared some of his thoughts around that. And I've been wanting to bring him on my program to talk about mental health as well. So gentlemen, welcome to my program. Thank you for taking time out. Thank you for coming here. Now, obviously, as I say, there's a sort of sea change taking place in the politics of this country, particularly Gaza and what is happening in Gaza, which is absolutely atrocious. The genocide that is taking place out there has galvanized young people into politics. People who were previously sort of getting away from politics has galvanized them. And I've noticed around the country that many young people are now saying, we've seen enough of the Labour Party councillors and the Conservative councillors taking our votes for granted, and they're not listening to what we are saying, and therefore we want to kick them out and take their place. Now, obviously, in the cases of Ishtiaq and David, they are part of a 14-strong group of young people in Bradford who also want to take on the role of councillor, partly because they want to see a sea change taking place in the way local authorities are run, but also to show that they feel that what is happening on a national level of these political parties does not reflect the need, the thoughts, the views, and the concerns, particularly of those people who want to see peace and harmony in Israel. So can I welcome you both, as I say.
Thank you.
David, you've been you're a seasoned politician, over 30 years, nearly 40 years of experience, both in local government and at parliamentary level. At this age, why do you want to come back into this foray of political fighting? What drives you, sir?
Well, the BBC reporter the other night said that George Galloway articulated the anger of the people of Rochdale. And that's what we're seeking to do. We're not creating it. We're not whipping it up. There is a genuine anger. And I'm angry about what is happening in British politics. I've still got some breath in my body. I still think I've got a contribution to make.
Excellent.
We're angry about what is happening, particularly in the Labour Party nationally. Don't forget, it's led by a Zionist who has failed to call for a ceasefire, and beyond that supports the actual genocide which is taking place in Gaza. So people are angry about that. I'm angry about that, and I want to punish Labour for that. But locally, I am, as you mentioned, been a local politician for many years, and we want to improve that because it's simply not good enough, and people are angry about that as well. We need to change the system. In Bradford, there are 30 seats. There are 3 councillors in every seat, so there are 90 councillors. Around a half of those council seats have candidates, councillors from the same party. All 3 councillors are from Tories.
So 3 councillors in each ward.
And what we need to do is introduce into those wards a challenge, because those 3 Labour councillors or those 3 Tory councillors think they can win every time. They don't think they have to work. They don't think they have to listen to anybody. Can you imagine how great it would be for them to be challenged and have an independent councillor in their ward? And by jingo, that would make them work far harder than they've been doing for many years.
So you feel that the council, as it is constructed at the moment, at a political level, has not been delivering good quality services to the people of Bradford?
Well, look, it's nearly bankrupt, and it's in a terrible financial state. But beyond that, I've been in a school today. I visit schools still on a regular basis, and they are in despair. This is a special school in Bradford, and they are in despair about how the council has served the interests of vulnerable children in Bradford. In October 2018, the Ofsted report said that we were one of the worst local authorities in the whole country. 5.5 years later, it's actually getting worse. Somebody needs to challenge the Labour group about its mishandling and its failure to support the most vulnerable children. That's the thing that
being
makes
a devil's
me angry.
advocate, I mean, Susan Hinchcliffe is not here. I would love to bring her on my program, but if sort of sitting on the other side, if Susan was here, she might turn around and say, well, we're not being given the money by central government. in order to put into the schools. Now, how would you sort of change that, the funding agreement that we have with central government?
Well,
because
if
you
you look
take money from
specifically-
one place, take it from one place, then you have to give somebody else. Obviously, you're going to have an issue there.
Well, look, I
presume.
mentioned children's services. If you want to know why the council has had so many problems with its budget, then look at the failure to keep staff that it already had, which resulted in children's services in a huge increase in the number of agency workers who are very, very expensive. But
Yes.
also, of course, agency staff come and they go. For children, vulnerable children, what you need is to build up a partnership over a period of time with the social worker that they know, and then they can build a rapport. How can you possibly do that with an agency worker that may be there 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 days, and then they've gone?
So there's no stability.
But it's the financial cost of the agency workers that is one of the biggest contributors to the financial problems of this council.
I mean, that's a very good answer, and I think we know that across all public sector organisations, the agency workers are sort of one of the key elements of the cost elements as well. But I mean, Ishtiaq, you have been a councillor before.
Sure.
I don't know how long you were a councillor for.
4 years.
4 years.
4
So you
years,
did
yeah.
sort of virtually 1 term or so. And how did you find that experience?
Well, I was an independent then as well.
Right.
And as you know, as an independent, we're not bound by party whips, we're not bound by party rules or party bosses, so we can very much stand up and speak our minds. The one thing that I was surprised at, the fact that those who were part of mainstream political parties, how they were controlled in terms of what they could say or what they couldn't say. And for me, that was one of the reasons why I could never join a mainstream political party, is that I can't have anybody telling me what I can and what I can't say. So I have to speak my mind. And that gave me a greater level of autonomy to be able to be truly representative of the electorate and the people that I represent. However, I understand the fact that some people may say, well, as an individual, how effective can you be as a councillor? And my argument to that is that within politics, sometimes there are some very difficult conversations that people don't want to have. And so I have that ability to be able to, as an independent, to at least force that debate to the table and to actually for them to recognise that the issues that the communities are facing. If you're a part of a ruling party and you're responsible for the delivery of services, and if those services are not being delivered effectively, the last thing they want to do is to actually talk about their own failures.
Do you see yourself as representing the community whose voices are not being heard, both of you, as independents? Yeah. Because both of you are standing as independents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I think, generally speaking, I think people have lost faith with mainstream political established parties. And people are asking the question that, are their policies aligned with what people really want in our district? Or are they driven politically by their party rules, or are they driven by the corporates who actually fund their parties and provide the finances to the parties? So the question that people are asking is that, who are these politicians working for? And that's the reason why there is this level of disenfranchisement and kind of disillusionment.
I mean, David, you, as I said, you're previously Liberal Democrat. You served on the council, you served in the Member of Parliament, and then because you made a speech on Gaza, the Liberal Democratic Party sort of cut ties with yourself, didn't they? So, I mean, you coming back not as a Liberal Democrat, but you're coming back as an independent. But I presume you still have the same views and thoughts about what is happening in Palestine, in Gaza, and Israel, in the West Bank.
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons that the party, I have appealed and tried to rejoin the party, and what they say is that we know that if we let you back into the party, you would continue to say things about Israel. And that's true. There is no doubt about that. And when you say things about Israel, it makes people angry. Supporters of Israel become very angry. And even though these people are maybe in other parties, they put such pressure on the Liberal Democrats as a party that it is not in the best interest of the party. My arguments have always been with the National Party. The local party I'm friends with, I am colleagues for many, many years with. I have no problems at all with the local Liberal Democrats. I am a Liberal, and I will be till the day I die. But at the national level, I'm afraid it is part of this huge pressure that is put up on our political system. We have a political system that is being controlled by a foreign state.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an accusation lots of people have made.
I know it sounds outrageous, but it is absolutely true. 85% of Tory MPs are members of the Conservative Friends of Israel. Nearly every single one of the Labour members of the Labour Friends of Israel would have been on paid-for trips to Israel to take in the propaganda.
As a station, obviously, what David has said are his views. I mean, we as a station cannot sort of corroborate or deny that or agree with that, because then we don't, unless we have the evidence in front of us.
But I'm an independent, and I can say it.
You can say it, but as I say, we as a it's like we have condemned the attack on the 7th of October. In Islam totally forbids the killing or taking of prisoners of innocent men, women and children. Right? The only time Islam allows you to kill anybody is when your own life is in threat, in danger. Other than that, you're not allowed to touch any human being or animal with the intention of killing them. So what Hamas did on the 7th is totally unforgivable. And everyone has...
I think we would all agree with that.
Completely condemned it. However, if you listen to some of the right-wing press, media, like talk radio, for example, they seem to not accept that the people have made apologies. It's like the 7/7 bombers. It's like Northern Ireland and the situation in Northern Ireland. You cannot blame one particular community for the actions of a few people. Yet it seems like that people, Muslims in this country, are being blamed for the actions of a small people who did something which everybody did.
It is collective punishment.
Yeah, exactly. And now coming back, I mean, you want to see change. Obviously, you want to break the two-state party political system to try and bring, as Ishaq says, sort of a new dimension to it, so the independent voice is heard. How successful do you think you're going to be? Because in Bradford, one of the things is this biradari politics as we know it. Do you think you can break that mold? Because that's very important, isn't it?
I think it's changing, and I think I've been supporting this young man, Muhammad Ali Islam, who's been standing in Manningham as an independent for the last 2 years. And out campaigning with him over the last 2 years, I've actually noticed a change in people's moods, which wasn't there previously, say perhaps 10 years ago when I stood in 2012. And I think a lot of that sentiment is coming from the young people.
Yes, I was going to ask about young people.
Young people. Those primarily who are under 35 are asking the question or posing the question that how effective is our political leadership and how aligned are they with our beliefs and what and what our needs are. And so over the last 2 years, I mean, a young person like Ali, who was 18 when he first stood in 2022 and managed to get 1,400 votes or thereabouts. And then last year, almost 2,200 votes and lost only by a few hundred. Now that to me signals that there is a mood for change within the communities. However, yes, we're talking about a community that's been historically voting for the Labour Party for the best part of 40, 50 years in this country, and especially with our elders who kind of by default have that position that they're voting for Labour. But the young people are now realising that the values that the party was founded upon are no longer there. And so there's been a shift away from those kind of values that, purportedly represented the working class views. Currently at the moment, there is very little difference between the Tories and the Labour Party.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
that's
and
the
so
most
the
people.
Labour have almost become Tory-like. So in many ways, personally myself, somebody asked me, well, what is the difference? And I say that there isn't a difference. However, in many ways, I actually prefer speaking to somebody of a Tory background because you know where you stand.
Yeah,
you know
exactly
exactly where you stand with them. Whereas with the Labour representatives, what they say and what they do are two different things.
I mean, there's been a lot of call on Labour councillors, the Muslim Labour councillors, to resign. One or two people have resigned over the issue of Keir Starmer's stance on Gaza and the speech he made at the beginning, saying that Israel has the right to defend itself and has the right to block aid, etc., to to Gaza. And we've seen nearly 35,000 people basically butchered in a way. We saw those atrocious scenes a few days ago when convoys were being attacked and people were being actually shot by Israeli soldiers, and although they denied. But is that call still there for Labour Party members to resign? And they're not doing so. We've only got one.
Well, let me be clear. What's happened happening in Gaza is purely a genocide. And these are war crimes that are taking place with the blessings of our government and the opposition here. Arms are being supplied to Israel to butcher these people, as you just described. And so, therefore, that is a huge concern for people. I mean, I'm going to be very honest here. That has been the catalyst for me to kind of throw my hat into the political ring again.
Simply standing up as a Labour councillor or a Labour member and saying, this is terrible, what is happening, I'm really opposed to it, but staying in the party just shows how seriously you are taking this. And I've said many times, I was a Liberal Democrat when Charles Kennedy opposed the Iraq War. If he had not opposed that war, I would have walked out and left the party.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop. We're coming to a break now. Really interesting to hear these two gentlemen's thoughts and comments and where they want to take politics in our area. It will be going for a break, inshallah. As I keep saying to you, enjoy your tea, coffee, faluda, whatever it is. And inshallah, I'll be back with you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.